Saturday. I'll be back this Saturday. Had a good game this past Saturday. It's good.
I know. That's what we're probably going to talk about that right off the bat,
Talk
considering
about it.
considering what the coaches thought of that game. I don't have a coaches poll this time, but I can. I was figured I'd do it every other week, but this week is. It was interesting how they dropped. I mean, they dropped Bridgeland like nobody's business. They dropped them 10 spots, 4 to 14, and they lost to a quality team. So I just want to hear your opinion on that when we get to it,
Sure.
which is probably would start off this thing. All right, it's the Houston High School Huddle. I got my guy Matt Stepp from Dave Campbell's Texas High School Football. Just got back from Houston, and he's ready to talk Houston because that's what I want to talk about. Right off the bat, we want to talk about what went down in Week 3, and especially a game that you were at where you got to actually do some play-by-play or color commentary, one or the other. Of the
Color
Bridgeland.
commentary. Color commentary. I'm not talented enough to do play-by-play, so I just got
He's
to
got enough.
jump in with some terrible analysis between.
Put the analysis stuff. At least you don't have a monitor like my man Romo does and just starts circling plays while we're watching them. I mean, we save that circling stuff for the replays. I can't stand that. Romo!
Yeah.
All right, sorry. We're not talking about Romo right now. Anyway, let's talk about the game you were at because before the game started, the coaches had Bridgeland at number 4. After 3 hours of that game, they have them at 14, and they dropped them 10 spots over that loss. I would like to know what you thought of the game, and A, do you think a 10-spot drop is worthy to a loss to a team like Ridge Point?
I think it's a little harsh, probably. I think that's a little harsh, but especially within the area, I could see a statewide 10-spot drop because there's a lot bigger pool of teams. But a local poll, that's a little surprising. I'm not sure there's 13 teams in Houston better than Bridgeland, So, I thought Ridge Point came out with a chip on their shoulder. I think they were really disappointed with how they played against Fulshear, and they kind of got embarrassed a little bit. Credit to Fulshear, they did a great job, but I think Ridge Point felt like they were better than that, and they came out with the point to prove, especially in the first half, completely shutting Bridgeland down. Bridgeland couldn't get their only touchdown in the first half was on a muff punt that got kicked into the end zone as 2 guys were diving for the ball, and the ball went flying backwards, and the Bridgeland deep snapper fell on it for a touchdown. That was it, the first half. Ridge Point did a great job. They got a sophomore linebacker, Dylan Bennett, who was unbelievable. Their D-line was active. Ridge Point, we all know how talented they are. They played with the chip on their shoulder. They did a great job. They were just a better team on Saturday, and Bridgeland's going to be all right. They're going to be fine. But I do wonder with Bridgeland, they're playing 2 quarterbacks, and basically they're kind of rotating, 2 series at a time, and then if a guy gets hot, they kind of stick with that guy. But how can a guy get hot if he's out after 2 series? So I'll be interested to see if Bridgeland keeps that up. I'm not a big 2 quarterback guy. It's the one position I feel like you got to have a guy. And both players are good, but I think it would behoove them to settle on one. That's just my opinion.
Right.
But I think they're both really good teams. Bridgeland's going to be fine. I still think they're going to win the district. Just not sure 13 teams are better than them. But Ridge Point, credit to them, they played a great game on Saturday night.
If it makes you feel any better, none of those 13 teams were from their district, so they should still win the district according to the coaches. But we talked about the 2 quarterbacks last week, and you talked a little bit about as long as they decide on one for the playoffs, they play it out through the season, then stick with one through the playoffs. But man, I think you even have to push it up to district play. I think they need to decide after these 3 games and stick with whoever, Jet Lewis or the other guy, and let's go, and just have him have all the snaps until they're up 3-4 scores. I think it's too late when it comes.
Yeah, I think they need to make a call. I thought by the playoffs, I still think they're good enough, even running 2 quarterbacks to win the district. But you have a point about reps and thinking and comfort and things like that. So I just feel like they got to make a call at some point. It's hard for a guy to get into a rhythm when he's getting pulled after 2 series.
Right. You're more the history buff than I am in Texas high school football. Tell me the last time there's been success at that, at running 2 guys and they go all the way to a state championship, or at least 5 rounds deep. Has that happened? It just doesn't seem like it ever works out. Like they say, if you have 2, you don't have any.
Usually you got one guy who's – now, I will say, this is very, very local to me. Okay. Everman, in their first state championship run, kind of had a 2-quarterback rotation until the playoffs. And then in the first round of the playoffs, they made a decision and went with a guy and moved the other guy to receiver. So it has happened. That was 2001, so that was a long time ago. There's probably been somebody since, but I just can't think of anyone off the top of my head. We saw it last year in the Metroplex with Lancaster. They struggled going two quarterbacks. Then about week 7, they kind of settled on a guy and won like 6 of their next 7 games and went to the regional final. So
Right.
yeah, so
It's just got to happen fast.
I think they just need to make a decision. They're good. Bridgeland's a good team. They got a great offensive line, great running game. Passing game struggled against Ridgepoint. Ridgepoint's secondary is really, really good. They got 2 D1 guys at corner and a D1 safety, so they're really good.
Yeah, I can take it. Well, if you look at the coaches poll, one of the biggest leap was Tom Ball going from 17 to 13. The coaches were very impressed with their win over Klein Collins, who I now, we talked about it last week. I now feel Klein Collins is in the danger zone. They've lost it's fine to lose your 2 non-districts if you're learning about your team, but now you lose 1 district game. You got another fairly tough one coming up, I think. Maybe one of the Magnolia teams. I can't remember. Maybe Magnolia West, I think it was. Maybe that's not as tough as I'm making it out to be, but they have it's tough because now they can't afford it. If you start off 0-4, and we saw some teams again up in North Texas, you saw teams start off 0-3, 0-4, and they ended up going Cedar Hill and Lancaster going 4 rounds deep. But man, these are going to be 2 district games that they lose. It's almost a must-win over Magnolia West. Am I correct?
Yeah, Klein Collins. I can't really put my finger on what's wrong there. Maybe there's something behind the scenes I'm not aware of. Maybe they got some key injuries that we don't know about. But on paper, going into the season, as good as they were last year, they brought a lot back. We thought they'd be really good. Something's just not right there. And I wish I'm going to have to make some calls to some people in Klein and see if I can get any feedback to find out what's going on, because it's just not. They've got too much tradition and too much talent
Right.
to be playing this bad. So it's got to be something that we're not hearing about behind the scenes. But it's been very surprising how much they've struggled.
Exactly. Well, something that hasn't struggled is the guys that bit into your theory. If they don't score, they can't win. And Summer Creek is still living on that dream. Can they go 10 games with not a single point, having scored against them, having to play Atascocita and North Shore? Can this happen? Talk to me.
It would be a miracle. So we're not going to put that kind of
Okay.
mojo, bad juju on Kenny Harrison's ball club. But it's a bold strategy and it works. And so far through 30% of their season, it's working. It's been really surprising how dominant Summer Creek has been. I think in our computer rankings at Dave Campbell's, Summer Creek's the number 1 team in the state right now because they've been so dominant. The computer loves dominance, and there's been no one as dominant as Summer Creek through 3 weeks. Now, it's going to get real tough very quick. 23-6A is a gauntlet, and it's more than just North Shore and Atascocita and Summer Creek. Humble's off to a really strong start at 3-0. CE King is 2-1, very, very solid the last 2 weeks, going 2-1. They've been a traditional playoff team. I told you, Humble Kingwood, they're off to a nice 2-1 start. They gave Stratford a tough game last week. I know they fell a little short in that game, but Kingwood's not a pushover by any means.
Right.
So 23-6A is I think right now top to bottom the best district in the state of Texas. Better than 11-6A in the Metroplex. I think right now, through 3 weeks, this is the best district in Texas. It's unbelievable. I mean, you got Atascocita with wins, over Austin, Westlake, and Katy in back-to-back weeks. You got North Shore sitting there, who's North Shore, and
Right.
other than kind of sleepwalking through their game against Crowley 2 weeks ago, they've been their usual dominant selves. And like I said, you've got these second-tier teams in CE King, Kingwood, and Humble, who are all playing very good football right now. So it's going to be a lot of fun when this district gets cranked up next week.
Absolutely. That's what I was going to say. They got a bye to get ready for their first games. Now, some of them don't have very tough first games, but Atascocita does. They're really stacked that front part of their schedule. You talked about, they thought Lamar was going to be good. Obviously, they don't. It's not the same Lamar team, but they got Katy and Westlake, and then they get a break, and then they get King and Summer Creek right off. That's 5 perennial powers. Obviously, Lamar's not, but 5 of them right off the bat, and they're really kind of handling their business. I'm really impressed by Atascocita with those 3 speedsters they have. I don't know, they kind of backed off Rashid a little bit, but with Carday all day, Mac and Troy Blaylock, they're just eating them up.
Yeah, I thought what was most impressive about them going to Austin and beating Westlake was how their defense played. They pitched a shutout in the second half. really, really impressive against a really good Austin Westlake offense. They did a great job. They hit some big plays against Westlake in the second half, kind of break the game open. It was just a really strong performance from Atascoceta's defense. It really impressed me after struggling a little bit in the first half. They gave up 21 in the first half. They turn around third and fourth quarter and don't allow a point. So Craig Stumps and his coaching staff deserve a ton of credit, and their kids deserve a ton of credit. Austin Westlake hasn't lost a game at home in 7 years, and Atascocita is a streak killer. You know, they went to Allen a couple of years ago and ended Allen's long home winning streak, and they go to Austin and end Austin Westlake's home winning streak. So, tip of the cap to Craig Stump and the Atascocita Eagles. They did a great job.
Yeah, keep them out of your town, man. Keep them out of your town.
Yeah, just play him at Turner. Don't even bring. Just go play. Agree to play him at Turner every year. Yeah.
And then you'll be all right. Oh, we lost them on the road. There's nothing we can do about that.
Yeah,
if you lose to them at home and have them shut down your winning streaks, it's another thing. So there's a flip side to every great district. You said that one's the best in the area. Talk to me about 14-6A, because this thing's not looking good. I mean, Westfield took a fall from 12 to 16, and they're the highest ones. Decaney they're not even barely showing up against some of these teams. They let Deion Sims run all over them. And then Aldi Nimitz is the only one that's really out there that's doing some things, and they're not really playing that highest of competition. Talk to me about this district and your opinion of them as they go into their bye week.
Well, they're going to start playing each other, so that'll help. That'll help.
That'll get some W's.
It's been a struggle. You know, Spring ISD has kind of carried 14-6A for the past few years, and Aldine's kind of been fighting for scraps. And the worm's turning a little bit here. You know, Westfield offensively is very, very challenged. You know, they've got Miles Dent and that's it. They're not moving the football. They lost to Hightower 14-7. You know, and then they only score 3 against North Shore. So the last 2 weeks, 10 total points. Decaney is really off to a rough start. Anthony Williams Ball Club is really struggling right now, and losing to King is not like alarming, but getting beat 42-0 is.
42-0.
And then when you combine that 42-0 loss with a loss at a 5A school in Port Arthur Memorial, and then a loss to Katy Pato, it's like that's not adding up. I thought Spring would struggle this year. I'm not super surprised about Spring struggling. But, you know, it's really the Aldine schools, Nimitz and Eisenhower. You know, Big Ike over there at Eisenhower, they're doing Odell James is doing a good job. Again, the schedule's not tough, and that's the thing about Nimitz and Ike is their schedule in non-district was set up, I think, to get some confidence going into district play. So, you know, they got a week off. We'll see. Ike's got a big game to open up district play against Davis. That's really a must-win for them. And, you know, Nimitz, we're gonna, you know, they got MacArthur. So all these schools should still, I think, after, you know, Nimitz and Eisenhower have a good shot to be 4-0 going into the second week of district. And then at that point, the momentum starts to get rolling, and then things start happening. I'll say this: I still think Decaney will get into the playoffs. So I still think we're gonna get 2 spring schools in the playoffs, but maybe Decaney, instead of being second, maybe third, maybe fourth at this point.
Something like that. Yeah, and the thing about...
I still think Westfield, even though Westfield is 1 and 2, they're playing a different level of competition, and I think it's almost like the analogy of Westfield's been riding a bike uphill for the past 3 weeks.
Yeah.
I think once they get into district play, they're going to be riding on a flat street or downhill, and things will get a little easier for them. So I think Westfield still, but I think I could easily see Nimitz and Eisenhower fighting it out for that 2-3 seed.
Yeah, and the thing about Nimitz is in the past they may have scheduled weekly, but they were just getting by these games. But you look at these first 3 box scores, and they're just dominating their opponents. They're not playing the best, but Nimitz teams of old didn't dominate them like this. They weren't pitching shutouts and scoring over 50 points against any of these teams, and they are this year. So it's something to see, and I'm interested once they do start playing the spring teams, what we can see there.
They're taking the next step as a program, and the next step is to dominate the teams that you're better than. Now let's see what they do against teams that are in their weight class or a little bit better.
Yeah. All right, one more district that's in a bye that I wanted to talk about is 17-6A. We actually had a really good game last week on our air with the Cy-Fair Dickinson game. That went down to the wire. Cy-Fair ended up losing it. Stratford, yeah, you said at the beginning of the year you thought they were going to win this district, and they kind of look like they are the cream of the crop here, but man, it's almost time for me to have Step given a way too early playoff prediction for those 4 teams again, because I'm interested to see. Because I thought Cy Falls would have played Clear Falls a little better. They ended up losing that by 20, I believe, and
yeah,
I thought that would be a little bit closer.
Yeah,
I'd like to see who would. And Memorial's doing nothing for me. So, talk to me about that district.
It kind of got away from Falls a little bit in the second half. I mean, I think Stratford and Cy-Fair are still your 2 teams. Cy-Fair is 1 and 2, but
Right.
they've after that really bad week 1 performance, they've kind of got things together. Going to Dickinson and losing to Dickinson's not anything to be ashamed of, especially in a close game. So I think Jeff Miller's ball club's got some things turned in the right direction as they get ready for district. I still think Stratford is right there. Falls, Cy Falls, I still think is your number 3. I still think they're kind of, I think they're a step below Stratford and Cy Fair, but I think they're still in the mix. The really
I want to hear your 4. I'm going to push these on closer because I want to hear your 4.
I still think
you have no idea.
Yeah, I'm. If you'd have asked me last week, I'd have been like, "Oh, it's Jersey Village, easy." But then they go off and get,
right,
curb stomped by Cy Springs, 60-0. So it's a little bit dicey. Jersey Village should have a get right game this week. This next first district opener against Northbrook. I think they can get right, but then it's Cy Fair and Stratford and Cy Falls all in a row.
Yeah.
So if JV can survive that. After the Northbrook game, if they can even sneak out a win against one of those 3, they'll be fine. But if they can be competitive, I think that'll be a good sign. I still think that 4 seed comes down to Jersey Village and Memorial.
All right. Well, we'll see what happens when district play starts. Now for games that are actually happening in week 4, and my actually favorite game. I'd love to hear your prediction on this. Willis against the Woodlands. Man, that should be an offensive showcase. Jermaine Bishop against Jake Dalton over there. The Woodlands throwing it around. Tell me what you think about this. This is a Thursday game, too, so I'll definitely have my eyes on it. I'll look at every bit of those highlights instead of being rushed like I usually am on Friday. So tell me what you think in this one.
Yeah, I think it was a shootout last year. DJ Lagway's in Florida now. I still think it's going to be a shootout. There's just too much firepower on both of these teams to not be a shootout. Love Jack Dalton. I watched a lot of his that game against Grand Oaks last week, and he had 1 touchdown run against Grand Oaks, and I was like, holy cow, is that Johnny Manziel reincarnated there a little bit? It was crazy. It was an awesome touchdown run. And Grand Oaks is not a bad team, and they hung around for a little while, but Woodlands pulled away. I think it'll be high scoring, but I think the difference is I think the Woodlands defense is just better this year, and I don't think Willis – the young quarterback Emerson's been good, but I think the Woodlands is going to throw a lot at him, and the Woodlands is going to make a play or 2 on defense to turn the tide of this game. So I like the Woodlands.
And it's a home game. Do you think this is for the district title, or do you think Conroe has a chance to possibly beat one of those? Because those are the 3 teams I think are up for a 13-6A title.
Yeah, I think those 2. Conroe's undefeated, but they've kind of scuffled a little bit against like the A-League schools and not been quite as dominant as I thought they should be if they want to compete for a district title in 13-6A. So I'd say this is probably for the district championship. I'd put some money on it if it was legal to bet in high school football.
Some places it is, not here though.
Yes.
We talked a little bit about
Overseas.
this already. Yeah, there you go. Fly over to Europe and come back, and we'll figure out what you bet. We talked a little about this one, but you do think Klein Collins is going to kind of pull this one out?
Their backs are against the wall, so we're going to see what they're made of this week. They're 0-3, and they're kind of playing for their season a little bit. Magnolia West seems a little offensively challenged. They beat Klein lost to Klein Forest 14-3 last week.
Right.
Kind of a bad loss. It's a must-win for Collins. If Collins loses this game, we're probably not talking playoffs anymore. So I think Collins is going to come out with a little bit of energy and a little bit of urgency and take care of Magnolia West this week. They got to. They got no choice. They don't. We're going to be throwing dirt on them.
I don't know if we'll be talking about Klein Collins on this show again. So
may not. They may
be done. Here's a team we haven't talked about at all. It's Tomball Memorial. They've slowly gone through their non-district with just the one blemish to Humble. They had the early bye week, which a lot of people dislike that. I know I would, because there's really no injuries to get well from when you only played 2 games. That loss to Humble, is that going to sting them? They're still a playoff team, but what do you think about this game against Magnolia?
there is you're a 9-team district, so the bye weeks everybody's off one game during the year. So Tomball Memorial just happened to draw the very first bye week, so the advantage is they've had 2 weeks to get ready for Magnolia. The disadvantage is they've had to sit on that loss for 2 weeks and stew on it a little bit. So I'm interested. Magnolia's got a nice win over Lake Creek. Their one loss is to College Station. They won last week. They opened up district play with a nice win. So I'm going to go with the Magnolia Bulldogs in this one.
Okay.
I think Magnolia's starting to angle for one of those playoff spots. They win this one, you're 2-0 in district. You got 2 nice wins over Klein Oak and Tomball Memorial. You heading into your you got a bye week. You're heading into your bye week. You're feeling pretty good at 3-1 and 2-0, and you got 2 weeks to get ready for Klein Kane.
Yeah, exactly. And then you got Tomball Memorial looking for Klein Kane in 2 weeks. They're playing Magnolia and then Klein Kane. So they're both. I wouldn't call it a trap game because I know Tomball Memorial is not going to be looking past Magnolia just because they were 5A last year. They need wins, and they'll definitely be playing that game. In 16 6A, we're going to finally learn something about Cy Springs because they're going to be playing some district. Maybe they haven't been playing the best of talent thus far, but they have been handling that talent. Now they're taking on Cy Ranch, a traditional power. They're 2-1. They only lost by a point to Tompkins. Talk to me about this game, and are you looking forward to? Is this going to be able to judge a little bit on what Cy Springs has?
Absolutely, because Cy Ranch, they've done a good. I mean, they're 1 point away from being 3-0 under new head coach Will Blaylock, and considering how late he got there at Cy Ranch and wasn't able to do spring ball, he's really doing a great job. I love the Richardson twins at Cy Springs. They're unbelievable.
Yeah.
I think OG Fagans did a great job turning that program around. And I watched a good portion, at least the first half of their game last week against Jersey Village before it got out of hand, and I switched over to another game. Really impressed with their young quarterback at Cy Springs. This is going to be a fun one. I was at the Berry Center on Saturday. There was a lot of talk amongst Cy-Fair ISD people about Springs and how good they've looked so far. So. I'm going to go with Springs. I honestly think this is the battle for second place in the district. I think the winner of this game at least gets second place at worst. Then the winner is going to be challenging Bridgeland for the district title, but I think the winner of this is going to be at no worst finish second.
And keep it. And so you look at Cy Springs. They got a bye after this, and then Bridgeland and Langham Creek, who snuck in the coach's top 20. They put them in at 20.
Yeah.
They're a little bit excited.
They're making a play for that 4th playoff spot right now.
Yeah, slide in there. And remember last year, Cy Springs started off 6-0, I believe, and then they kind of tapered off a little bit. They made the playoffs, but they ended up losing 3 of their last 4 or something like that. I want to say their schedule's a little tougher here at the beginning and the end, so we should see. I wanted to talk a little bit about. Yeah, obviously, some of these teams are 7-team districts, so they got to go at each other. Any of these HISD against A-Leaf ASD games mean anything to you? There's 3 of them on the docket. I don't know if any of them intrigue you at all, but I just figured I'd get your thoughts on it.
Sure.
I know Lamar's playing Elsick.
Lamar and Elsick is interesting. Really, more about to me, it's more about what Elsick has. I think Lamar's going to get a win. They're pretty big favorites, but Elsick, the last couple of weeks has kind of struggled playing, some better competition. I think Shea Rodriguez is trying to get his team ready to challenge for a playoff spot in that district, and they're playing, Randall and Iowa Colony, who, even though they're 5A, are just way more depth, way more talent. So I think Lamar gets a win, but I think if you're Elsick, you just want to be competitive. You want to put on a good showing and be competitive. I mean, I think we kind of know in this district, George Ranch and Fulshire are the 2 teams to beat. But I think, the game that I'm really interested in is A-Leaf Taylor and Houston Heights.
Yeah.
I think that's more of a like-on-like game. I give the edge to Heights a little bit, but I think A-Leaf Taylor and Heights is the game that I think it actually has the chance to be the most competitive games between 2 playoff-type teams.
I was hoping Hastings would be a little bit better, so I'd have a reason to go out and shoot Smith Aragbo over there. But, man, they are really struggling here off the top. They get Bel Air. Yeah. I don't know if that one really interests you at all. Probably not, but I thought I'd bring it up. We're going to be talking a lot of Houston ISD on this thing, so I hope you've done your research on Houston ISD.
Love HISD. Love HISD. My guy, AD Andre Walker, and assistant AD Jeremy Kurt, good dudes over there.
Well, moving on to 196A. I mean, I think we both agree that Katy will beat Katy's Cinco Ranch, but tell me what you think Cinco Ranch has to do to show you that they deserve that fourth spot that you gave them in the way too early predictions of last week.
For a long time, this was the rivalry in Katy ISD. Cinco Ranch, I think, owns a win over Katy. This was kind of the premier game in Katy ISD. I think Katy and Tompkins has kind of surpassed that recently. Tompkins' success. Cinco got off to a slow start. Playing the Woodlands. That's expected. I thought they would fare better against Tomball, but they righted the ship. I think for your Cinco, you're just looking to be competitive. I think that's the biggest thing. I still think they're the team to beat for that 4 spot, but it's Seven Lakes is off to a nice start, but they got drilled by Cinco last week, so you kind of take them out of the mix right now. And then you look at it, and Pado and Morton Ranch are kind of lurking. Pado and Maid Creek are kind of lurking
Right.
As potential, especially Maid Creek under their first year head coach Mike Arongolo, doing a great job there. So. I think for Cinco, it's not about winning this game as much as it is putting on a good effort and being competitive and putting up a fight. Because Katy's Katy, and I think your Cinco Ranch, you're just hoping to put up a fight, make a good showing, then take that momentum into the rest of the district play and win those key games you need to win to get into the playoffs.
Keep it close. I got you. Shadow Creek, they took a couple wins to try to right the ship against that devastating loss in week 1. Manville is another step up from the 2 that they did play, and it's a traditional rival right there. Talk to me about this game and what you think might happen here.
Yeah, Shadow Creek, the loss to Summer Creek in the first game doesn't look quite as bad now. I mean, you would have liked Shadow Creek to be a little more competitive, but at least it doesn't. At least they weren't the only ones that got goose egg by Summer Creek. They bounced back nicely. Manville's a little shaky this year. I think this is the first time these two schools have ever played. So I'll be very interested.
Never mind.
The dynamic, because Manville was 5A there.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Shadow Creek moved up to 6A. So when Shadow Creek opened, Manville dropped down all the way to 5A D2. Remember, they were playing Fort Bend Marshall and those guys.
Okay.
Shadow Creek broke off basically from Manville. I mean, but at one time, all those kids were, where kids in Shadow Creek live were going to Manville. So there'll be some interest. It'll be interesting dynamics to see how this game kind of plays out, because Alvin ISD is really kind of spread out. Like, you've never had a rivalry between Alvin and Manville, because Alvin High has just struggled so much, so no one really is taking them kind of seriously. This is going to be the first really kind of hot Alvin ISD rivalry that we'll get to see, because these two teams know each other so well. So the atmosphere at Freedom Field should be very good. I think Shadow Creek's just got a little bit too much talent, a little too much firepower for Manville, but we'll see. The rivalries are made off of upsets and crazy things happening, so we'll see what happens. This is going to be a fun one.
Maybe start something special over there.
Yeah.
24 6A starts this week, and the one that I'm most interested in is Deer Park and Clear Falls. May tell us a little bit more. Tell us more about each of these teams, because Deer Park's got 2 out of 3 wins. They hung with the Woodlands for a little while before, Dalton, the boys just took off. You were talking about Dalton, by the way. One of the highlights we saw in the Deer Park game is him 40-yard touchdown run, stopping on a dime and making. I felt bad for the defender, because I know that ACL was gone after the way he turned on him. It wasn't the case, but it just looked like it could have been. And he took off for a touchdown. But anyway, that's besides the point. Tell me what you think about Deer Park's first game up in 24 6A.
I've been impressed with Deer Park this year, but I've been more impressed with Clear Falls. I mean, they're 2-1, and they have a couple of really nice blowout wins over George Ranch and Cy Falls on their resume. The one loss is a very close game to Hightower, who's I believe undefeated, state ranked.
Yeah.
And so it's. I think the resume for Clear Falls is a little bit better. Austin Flynn's done a great job there at Deer Park. He's done a good job getting his alma mater back in the mix. I think this is going to be a really close, competitive game. I just feel like Clear Falls, they're a little more battle tested. They're a little bit more talented, and I think they're going to get the win. So I go with Clear Falls in this one.
Okay. Let's move down to 5A, and I put this on the schedule because you brought up Spring Woods. You thought this could be a team that makes the postseason after they drop down to 5A. It would go a long way if they beat Waltrip on Friday night. Tell me what you think about this one.
Yeah, Waltrip's been one of the better teams in Houston ISD to start the year. And Spring Woods, they're 0-2. You lost to
Haven't
Northbrook.
scored.
They haven't scored yet this year, so they need to get it right. It's just not going to be this week. Waltrip's
It
just
won't be
got
this
too
week.
much for him. No, I think Waltrip's going to run away with it and win pretty handily. I mean, Waltrip's, they got blown out by Bel Air Episcopal in the first game of the year, but they bounced back nicely with two nice wins over Chavez and Milby. So I feel like we could see a similar, 45-14. I do think I think Springwood scores this week.
Okay.
But I think Waltrip's Springwoods is really fighting for fourth. For Springwoods, your big game is going to be trying to play Galena Park. You want
Yeah.
to beat Galena Park, and because you feel like Sterling, Westbury, and Waltrip are probably the three top teams. So then if you're Springwoods, you got to beat Madison, you got to beat Galena Park, you got to beat Milby.
Right.
Even Sharpstown, Earl Woods has done a great job at Sharpstown, getting them off to a 2-1 start. So those are the games that Springwoods is going to win. This is probably a little above their pay grade, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. Well, Waltrip's hoping that this theory still sticks up. If which can't score, they can't win. So they haven't scored yet, and they're hoping that theory keeps going on for them. This is where I'm excited
I got
about.
a bold
This is
prediction.
what,
I got a bold prediction. If Waltrip pitches a shutout,
Give me here.
Waltrip,
another win? Okay.
Yeah, Waltrip gets a win if they pitch a shutout.
Hey, you made that prediction last week with Summer Creek, and they pitched a shutout and won. So
I mean, hey,
you're 1 for 1 with that prediction. Maybe it'll happen again.
Hashtag analysis.
This is the district that I'm going to be excited about this week because I got a couple undefeateds playing each other right here. Iowa Colony and Baytown Lee. Now, Baytown Lee's playing some squads. They took on South Houston, beat them only by 4, but that's a higher ranked team there, or higher class team. Then they took out Goose Creek Memorial. They took out they won last week against Sterling. And Iowa Colony was your darling at the preseason. This could show us a little bit about Iowa Colony because next week they'll get Richmond Randall.
Yeah, Baytown Lee, Tim Finn does a good job there. I mean, I can remember when I first got into reporting high school football and being kind of in the media. Baytown Lee was still blowing and going as one of the better teams in the Houston area. Drew Tate and those guys slinging it around. Baytown Lee's done a nice job. They're 3-0, but the schedule has been very favorable. This is by far, by a factor of 10, their toughest game. And
Right.
Iowa Colony's just got a lot of talent.
Too much for them.
They got a lot of dudes. I think Iowa Colony's going to run away and hide in this one.
I got you. What about this one? This is another one this is where some athletes are at. Randall against Marshall. This is, I think this is the second game on our schedule this week. Tell me what you think about
Another
this one
Thursday
because
night
I'm
game.
excited about it. Yeah, another Thursday night
Another
thriller.
Thursday night at Trailer. District game now. It was they played in the playoffs last year.
Yep.
Randall knocked off Marshall, kind of surprised them. I think this has the makings to be a real budding rivalry in the Houston area, at least as long as Randall's in Marshall's level, which may
Right.
not be much longer. Randall may be going 5A D1 or 6A pretty
Okay.
soon, but just with that growth down there in the Richmond, Rosenberg, kind of that Fort Bend County area, where Marshall's a lot closer to the city, so they're kind of boxed in when it comes
Right.
to growth. It's interesting, you've got a lot of talent on both teams. I watched a good portion of the Marshall Crosby game online. One concerning thing about Marshall for me is their inability to establish a running game. They're very reliant on the big tall quarterback and their receivers. They couldn't get but last week they couldn't get Ferguson the ball very much. The stud receiver that Marshall has, they couldn't get him the ball a ton against Crosby. Crosby kind of hung around. Randall's been blowing people away, but they haven't really played that tough of a schedule. This is going to be like their first really big test. Obviously, Landon Callis Williams is a stud. They've got a good quarterback with some weapons. And there's a little bit of extra spice there. Richmond Randall's middle linebacker transferred over from Fort Bend Marshall during the offseason. So you've got kind of that added spice. Randall added a couple of kids from Needville that were transfers in. Needville's right there, not far. So the kids kind of moved over. It's going to be interesting to see if Randall Marshall has played a tougher schedule. They played Dallas Skyline. They played Crosby would beat basically anyone on Randall's schedule. Playing the two A-Leaf schools and Foster, who's way down. So I think Randall wins, but I think it's going to be really close. I think the step up in competition will be good for Randall. I think they got a little too much talent, but it'll be a close game. It could be chippy. So this could be developing into a real tasty rivalry.
Yeah, I'm sure Marshall is still feeling that loss. That's their last loss. they've had to date was to Randall last year, so they're feeling it and they would like to get some there. So yeah, that would be good. Plus, I like Randall's quarterback's name, Scribonic, one of the Scribonic brothers. For anybody in North Texas that's listening, the Scribonics. All right, let's talk a little HISD because with the bye week coming in, it's a good time to actually do that. You drop down into 4A. Talk about Fur against Washington, and basically let's just make this 11-4A kind of talk as they get into round 2 of their district play. Fur had no problem with Northside, but a lot of teams don't, and Washington
struggling. Yeah,
Washington had a couple weeks now. I have 2 weeks to prepare for Fur. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, Washington. 2 years ago, Booker T under Kelvin Chatham was like the story of Houston. They went 10-0, had a great year, won the district, almost won a first-round playoff game. Then they went. I think they were 0 for last year. They really struggled last year. Really under an interim head coach. Then Don Holloway. Actually, they went 1-9. So they went from 10-1 to 1-9. But Don Holloway's back. They're a lot more experienced. They're 1-1. They probably feel like they should be 2-0. The bye week helps. I think they've had 2 weeks to kind of prepare for what Fur does. But I just think Fur has a nice win on their resume outside of HISD when they went down to Freeport and knocked off Brazosport. They took a tough loss to Huffman Hargrave, but that's a solid step up in competition for Fur.
Right. It is.
I think Fur is a little more battle tested and just a little more talented. I think the depth is pretty equal in this game. I just think Fur is a little bit further along in their development. So give me the Fur Brahmas.
Give them the Fur. A lot of Brahmas down in the Houston area. I like that.
Yeah,
all right, there's another district team, Wheatley against Yates. You talked about Yates last week. Your thoughts on them taking on Wheatley and Wheatley has a couple wins, a tough loss to Lamarck, but Madison's not really up to par, and they also played North Forest. But talk to me about Yates and Wheatley.
Yeah, Third Ward versus Fifth Ward. This was a huge rivalry back in the day. It's still a big deal in these communities. It's interesting. It's the schedule broke this year. They're playing so early. Yates got the better of Wheatley last year, and I think the resume for Yates is just a little bit better than Wheatley's. Yates probably feels like they should be 3-0. If they didn't get hit with the penalty bug, they would probably be 3-0 right now. Wheatley's 2-1. The loss to Lamarck. I think it's going to be really close. It always is. It's never going to be a blowout when these two teams get together. I lean slightly to Yates in this one, just off pedigree. But it's a rivalry game. It can go either way. This is a huge game. I think Worthing has established themselves as the cream of the crop in this district. It'll be tough for anyone in this district to hang around with Worthing. I think this could be a game for second place, though.
Oh, nice.
And you want to get as high a seed as possible because I feel like the district that's next to them, District 12 4A Division 1, is not quite as strong as it has been in the middle. So if you can get second place and play that third place team, I think if you're HISD, I think you feel like you got a shot to maybe pull off an upset in the first round of the playoffs if you can get that 2 seed.
That would be pretty awesome. How about moving down to that district? Needville is hosting El Campo. They got their taste of one of the powerhouses in Columbus last week, and their defense played really good, held them to 60.
Yeah.
and they're going to get another taste of another.
It's Columbus's lowest point total of the year so far.
Wait, we're definitely going to get into Columbus a little bit later because I'm ready to put them past Franklin, but that's just me. Talk to me about this Needville having the Icebirds come into town and see, can they stay competitive and hold them off, or what do you think in this game?
Yeah, El Campo made their debut in the state rankings this week in 4A Division 1. I think Travis Reeves done a heck of a job there at El Campo. They're 2-1. Their one loss was by 4 to Rudder over there in Bryan. Rudder's a good team. They're 3-0. So El Campo's been very strong to start the year. Needville's a little young, a little inexperienced, and they ran into kind of a buzzsaw last week against Columbus. It'll be interesting to see how Mike Giles' young ball club responds after taking one on the chin against Columbus. Can they bounce back against a good Needville team? I think it'll be close. I think it'll be competitive, but I'm leaning to the Ricebirds here. I really think Travis Reeves got something cooking there in Ricebird land.
Okay, well that would make their game with the Black Cats interesting. Tell me about this game.
In that district, right? Some cool mascots.
Yeah, Ricebirds, Black Cats.
And you got the sand crabs down in Port Lavaca.
That's right.
It's a good mascot district.
I think all those animals you're not supposed to let cross your path. Maybe not. Maybe it's just the Black Cats. But talk about the Black Cats against Sealy and what you think may happen in this game. We'll actually be at that one because we have a presentation. We're going to stick around for the game as well. Tell us about what you think about this game.
Yeah, Sealy has quietly gone about their second year under Coach Finley, very quietly off to a great start. They're going to get overshadowed a little bit because you've got teams like Belleville in their district. Bay City, took one on the chin against Edna. They bounced back last week and got a win. Sealy's offense has been something real serious, though. I think the Tigers have been putting up big points. All
71 week.
Yeah, 70. Yeah, they've thrown up some numbers. 70, 48, and 30. The problem is I just don't. I look at Sealy's schedule and I don't see any really tough teams, and most of them are smaller schools. They're playing 3A schools, whereas Bay City, obviously they did lose to a smaller school in Edna. That's an elite smaller school.
Right.
I think Robert Jones's ball club gets a win and kind of holds, sets things right with a nice win going into district play. But let me tell you, Sealy is dangerous. If you get into a shootout with them, you're in trouble. So I think Bay City's defense is going to need to play well. Get a couple of stops, put Sealy behind the 8 ball, and then you'll be fine. You pin your ears back and get after their quarterback.
And it's on the road as well, so that's another key issue there. Belleville's getting back onto their tough non-district schedule. They didn't really have much with Crawford. We even got to see a big man make a big score there when I don't know if you saw the highlights, but it was hilarious when our Crawford quarterback just fell on the ground like, I'm not tackling this dude.
Can't believe you buried Crawford. Can't believe it. Buried after one. You buried him. 1 week.
They're buried.
I'm going to make
I would have buried him if it was within. Go ahead.
Make a prediction. Fort Bend Crawford makes the playoffs. They finish 4th.
Well, you just said that district was kind of spicy in the middle. Maybe they will make it there.
That's Fort Bend Crawford to finish 4th.
That's a good prediction. What do you think about Belleville taking on Hitchcock, though? It's a 3A team, but it's pretty good 3A team.
3A team. I think we're going to learn a lot about Hitchcock in this game. The things that Hitchcock is not very good at are all things Belleville's really good at.
Right.
Running the football, stopping the run, playing physical. Those are Belleville Brahma's football right there. And those are things that Hitchcock has not done well the past couple of years. Hitchcock can throw it with anyone. They can run around with anyone. They can play in space with anyone in 3A and really 4A probably as well. But when a team lines up and punches Hitchcock in the face, it usually doesn't go well for them.
Yeah, that's what happened when they played Little River Academy.
Yeah, Columbus last year. So let's see if Hitchcock has been able to take that weakness and mitigate it a little bit more, because you're going to have to against Belleville. I don't think they have done it enough. I think they are a little bit better up front than they have been, but Belleville's a different beast, and good luck blocking DJ Sanders. That's what I'll say. So that slot T is going to get rolling for Belleville and Thursday night. It's a great Thursday slate in Houston this week.
Absolutely,
it's another big Thursday game. So yeah, I'll take Belleville. Big.
And then finally, we got Columbus playing another tough one before they get Belleville next week. Columbus against Madisonville. In my other show, I'm going to have highlights of Salina against Franklin, who I picked Salina to win that game because that'll keep me on my whole run of Columbus playing 16 games this year. That's what you may have adopted Crawford, but that's probably a bolder adoption than what I'm doing. I'm adopting a kid that's got a 16
here, Wizzy. Yeah,
I'm adopting a kid that's got 1,600 on the SATs and is the best athlete of all time.
So you're telling me your perfect 3A Division I state semifinal is Columbus versus Edna? Is that like that's
there? You
like
go.
The dream
Let's do
right
it.
There?
Let's have it. I would love to see
it right and have it like right at in Houston somewhere, right? Have
yeah,
like
exactly.
Freedom Field or something.
Or the University of Houston. Have it somewhere special that I can get it.
Yeah, there you go.
What do you think they do against Madisonville?
So first off, is Madisonville one of your teams, or is they too far out?
That's too far out. We don't. Okay, you better say something nice about Columbus.
Well, let me talk about Madisonville first.
Okay, go ahead.
I actually watched the end of their game against Malakoff Friday night while I was on the field getting ready to record my instant reaction, because that game ran a little bit long.
Okay.
And, for those of you in the Houston area who don't know about Malakoff is the defending 3A Division I state champions. East Texas power. I said it, East Texas. 3A
Thank you.
Division One,
I
Henderson
agree with
County,
you.
Texas. But Madisonville took him to the limit. They led 21-7. It took Malakoff a late 1-minute touchdown drive and a sensational touchdown pass from a guy named Mike Jones. Their quarterback's
Who?
name is really Mike Jones. Yeah, fitting for the
Mike
Houston
Jones.
podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
Threw a 47-yard touchdown pass with 37 seconds left. They went for 2 and got the win. So Madisonville loses by 1 point. Madisonville's got a great running back, Philip Green, fun to watch, a great player. That being said, Columbus is a flamethrower right now.
Flamethrower.
Schobel, Grayson Rigdon, Braylon Fisher, John Schobel, that offensive line. I said it on our podcast today. When you watch Columbus tape, Adam Schobel is eating a sandwich back there. He's texting his girlfriend. He's writing his English term paper. He's got all the time in the world. And you give a
He's
guy
making
that
his homecoming sign.
yeah, you give a guy that talented with that kind of arm and those kind of weapons that much time, he's going to hurt you every day. That's why Columbus is scoring 63 points a game and has won their 3 games by an average of 41 points per game. It's been complete domination. Madisonville's going to keep it close. They're going to play Columbus much closer than anyone else has because Madisonville can run the ball and control the clock. But in the end, I still like Columbus to pull away. And I think this is going to be the statement game that propels Columbus to potentially taking over the number 1 spot in 3A Division 1 in the state rankings next week. Because now you have a like-to-like comparison with Malakoff. They played a common
Similar
opponent.
type teams.
And they played a common Madison.
I
You have a
definitely
common
agree with
opponent to compare them to now.
That's true. Collaboration. That's a team that's going to go far, and we both know it. And they're going to beat Franklin this year too. And I'm going to say it every week on this podcast, even when we don't even preview their game. I'm going to say, by the way, Columbus is going to beat Franklin whenever they play.
You're
That's
willing
just
it into existence for personal reasons.
Exactly.
Not that you don't like Franklin. It's just that they don't get your show in Franklin. So
That's right. They don't get it. So we're doing Houston area.
Get
I
your
want
show.
these people.
I'll tell you this, Wizzy. You got to go to Columbus and do a feature on Schobel, and you got to go eat at Schobel's restaurant.
Schobel's restaurant.
Yeah.
They got a restaurant out there. Oh, I got to have that. I got to get
Schobel's
there.
have a restaurant. The Schobels have a restaurant. It's like a Columbus institution. It's really good.
There's Schobels everywhere. You know, I saw a Schobel girl at the state tournament. When they went to state, they had Schobel in the starting lineup. I was like, man, how many kids both of these Schobels guys have?
Good bloodlines, man. I'm sure if you're a coach on the girls or boys side of Columbus, you're hoping they keep reproducing and having more kids because they got
running
great
through the
athletes.
roster. Is there a Schobel? Yeah, we're going to be good this year.
Yeah.
All right, so let's
go eat at Schobel's, Wizzy. And, hey, Schobel's sponsor.
exactly
High School
sponsor the
level.
show.
Let's
We'll
go.
be out there every week. We'll have 10 weeks of Columbus highlight. Where are you headed this week?
Schobel's. We'll just be eating Schobel's the whole time on the show. Need some
The two
fried
of
green
us.
beans and a steak.
Oh man, that'd be awesome. All right, where are you headed this week, Matt?
Thursday and Friday, I'm going to keep it local in my neck of the woods, Dallas area. Thursday night, I'll be at Choctaw Stadium for Mineral Wells versus Quinlan Ford, 2 4A teams who are actually both 3-0. 2 4A Division II teams are both off to 3-0 starts at Choctaw Stadium. So, hey, for Houston people, we got an El Tiempo. If you know El Tiempo, we got one in Arlington now. It's not quite as good as the Houston El Tiempos, but it'll do until I can get to El Tiempo in Houston. Friday night, I'll be at in Grapevine for Mansfield Timberview and Colleyville Heritage, big district game there. Colleyville Heritage is off to a 2-1 start. Mansfield Timberview 1-2. Gave Argyle a really good game last week, so should be a good time. Love that stadium there in Grapevine, Mustang Panther Stadium. They really did a good job when they remodeled it a few years ago. And then Saturday, I'm headed back to Houston. I'll be in H-Town. I'll grab some lunch before my game.
At where?
6 o'clock.
El
6
Tiempo.
o'clock.
Okay.
Maybe El Tiempo. I don't know. El Tiempo is more of like a dinner,
Okay.
post-game spot.
I figure you get a 2 in 1 week. One in Arlington, one in Houston. You can truly compare.
I think
Taste
what I'll
test.
do is go have lunch at Spanky's Pizza right there
Okay.
off 610 and Telephone Road. Spanky's Pizza. You want to sponsor the Houston High School Huddle? I'll be
There you
munching
go.
on a piece of Spanky's Pizza during the pub. they actually feed you Spanky's Pizza in Pasadena.
Oh, do they really? Okay.
Yeah. Good
I'd
stuff.
like to hear that.
That's good stuff. So Saturday night, I'll be at Hall Stadium in Mo City as the Hampshire Finette Longhorns come over from the Golden Triangle. They are the Division II 7-on-7 state champions, by the way.
Okay.
2-1 on the year, taking on Fort Bend Crawford, who we just talked about.
That's his
2-1
adopted
Fort Bend
team.
Crawford. So I get to go see my adopted team on Saturday at Hall Stadium. So I got my media credential in. So Coach Rideout at Fort Bend ISD, hook your boy up. Looking forward to getting down there to Fort Bend County and Fort Bend and seeing it. Hopefully what's a competitive game Saturday evening.
Yeah, I hope it is too. They're definitely going to want to shake off that 62-0 joint and forget about it and pretend like it, burn that tape and get ready for some
it's one of
Hampshire
those games
from
you
that.
don't even watch it. There's no point in watching it. Just burn
There
it
is
and
no
just
point.
move on. Yeah,
Absolutely,
so,
exactly.
looking forward to getting back to Houston. I love going down to H-Town. Now, after this week, it'll be a few weeks before I'm back in Houston, but I will be back this year. It may not be till like week I think
6 or
8 or
7.
9. No, like 8 or 9. I think
Even
it's
later than that.
Yeah, so.
All right,
That's
well,
all right.
get down
We'll
to
be back.
Paul and see our boy Matt, man. He'll be down there. He'll shake hands. He'll kiss babies. He'll slap children. Or maybe he won't do that last part, but he will
No,
kiss
I don't want to
babies.
do that. I love a kid. Matt Step loves the kid, so come say hi. Yeah, if you see a big dude walking around in a backwards hat and a Dave Campbell shirt,
You know
probably
who it
me.
is. You know who
Yeah.
it is. All right, Matt, I appreciate it. Next week we'll talk about week 5, which will be the halfway mark. I don't know how this always happens.
It's
This
flying
happens
by.
every year.
I'll be doing playoff projections here pretty soon, and then you know what time it is, Wizzy. Your favorite
Yeah,
time of the
exactly.
year. When
Give me
I
them
become-
venues.
When I
Exactly. Give me
become
the.
your favorite guy in the world, right here. It's those of you don't know. We'll pull the curtain back. This is a little bit shorter show because not as many games, but
Right.
by district, basically the 5 weeks of the playoffs before state.
Right.
I'm Ward's favorite guy because he's like, when do you get me those brackets? I need double headers. I need Thursday games.
Exactly,
I need
Thursday
it.
games.
I'm the one who I give you your hit. You know, I get you what you need. So I'm your guy.
Give me that hit. He's my pusher. He's my pusher, man.
I'm
He
your
gets me
playoff-
through,
I'm your
man.
Playoff pusher. I'm your playoff pusher. There you go.
Give me them venues. I got to have a venue in a Thursday game.
Yeah,
I
give me
appreciate you
doubleheader.
doing that.
Saturday doubleheader.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, man, those are perfect. All right, brother, we'll talk week 5 next week. Thanks for joining me, man.
Thanks, Wizzy.